Welcome to the Mind Body Podcast. I'm your host, Maria Angelova, and I'm here to challenge everything you have been told about aging and wellness. This podcast is for those who refuse to accept that growing old means growing unhealthy. Each week, I will bring you dynamic conversations with inspirational guests, sharing practical advice, insights, and motivation to live your life rebelliously as you age with grace and vitality. This is your time to embrace self-care, transformation, and an infectious spirit that says no to the conventional and yes to a vibrant, powerful life. Let's dive in and redefine what it means to live well. Hi, Rebels, and welcome to the Mind Body Podcast, your rebellious podcast with me, your host, Maria, where today you are going to get an opportunity to talk to somebody truly special who has such an inspiring story and is going to share with us such juicy, great stuff. We are going to be talking about passion, profit, and purpose. Hello, and welcome on board, Timothy. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I hope you're staying cool in whatever part of the country you're in today.
You know what? I'm in Atlanta and we are having some heat advisories, so it's not as cool as we decided to be, but that's Georgia for you. How are you doing?
Throughout Washington, D.C., we've got the same situation, so
yeah, stay
I'm
inside.
glad we're inside.
Yes, and you know what? I was actually just speaking with a client about that. We have gotten spoiled because we have AC. Some countries in the world do not have the luxury of an AC, right?
Hey, I just moved from London, and listen, the odds in London of you having AC in your flat or house are pretty low. But they're also having a heat wave today, so it's hitting a lot of places all at once.
Yeah, well, stay cool and let's dive right in because this is a hot topic. Speaking of cool and hot, this is a hot topic.
Well said. Oh, I like that.
That is a great lead in, right? Well, Timothy, before we dive in, I mean, you are one of the co-founders and CEOs or chief enabling officers of Conscious Capitalism. Before we dive in and talk about all of that great stuff, let's get to know who is Timothy. Give us a couple of words that describe you and a little bit of a backstory behind each word.
Ooh, a couple of words that describe me. Father. I am the father to two wonderful love bugs, my daughter who just turned 29 last week and a 25-year-old son.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Come on, there's got to be another one.
Oh, they're my love bugs. My daughter's here. She just got married and in Washington, D.C. That's why I moved here. And I'm going to have both of them together with me this weekend. A belated celebration of Father's Day and a celebration of my daughter's birthday. So whenever I have my two kids with me, I'm super excited and it's a wonderful weekend. So it's going to be a wonderful weekend.
Well, I'm excited for you. I have a teenage daughter and right now we're in the stage where she does not want to hang out with me. And I do have to say her daddy takes it very challengingly. He takes it very personally.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm on the other side of that now, and
you have passed that stage.
Yeah, we're good friends, and everybody survives. That's what I can tell you.
Look forward to passing that teenage stage and being on the other side, like you said.
Thanks.
Well, Timothy, like I said, you are a part of a tremendous organization, one I personally have very deep respect for, and I'm very passionate about because I work with a lot of people in the healthcare and wellness space. And for a lot of people in this space, purpose is there, profit may be there, and there is a lot of internal conflict. And I would say battle inside the head of, well, I love to do what I want to do, but I can't make money from it. Or I have to sacrifice and give, and I'm not supposed to take. And I'm like, why can you not have both? And that's a big mindset shift that, like I said, I'm very excited about. From where you stand, I mean, you work from anything from entrepreneurs to very successful Fortune 20 organizations. You are on multiple boards. You are a chief enabling officer of Conscious Capitalism. Like you have worked with a variety of leaders, helping them create space. Tell our listeners who are on that mindset of, well, I don't know if profit and purpose can coexist. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I mean, you hit on it. It's a mindset. And, I was reminded recently there was a study I was reading about people who are vaccine deniers or climate deniers. And the survey basically said the expectation was that these people didn't believe in science, and that's why they got there, or they weren't sophisticated about their science. Well, they studied it and it discovered that it was quite the opposite. These people thought they were well above average in their understanding of science. And what the article was trying to highlight was that showing those people more evidence and more science wasn't going to change their minds, because they had already thought they'd made a sophisticated analysis of the issue. So it became a mindset shift. Like, if your mind is made up that the world is a certain way, then that's where you're going to end up. And I think it's the same thing with the profit and purpose. As long as your mindset is either or, win, lose, then that's where you're going to end up. And the really difficult thing is that when you go to both ends and you say, I want to live my purpose and I want to be profitable, it forces you to then be much more creative about how you combine those things. And that's a mindset shift. Like, yes, it's possible. Now the question becomes how, not whether, but how. So once you shift to the how, then it becomes a question of how creative am I? How open am I? How patient am I? And working through the process that way. So it begins with this mindset shift, and then being open to the fact that, yes, if it can, how can I do it, rather than it's not possible.
It's not possible. I love that you bring up the word open-minded, because I think that's such a critical aspect of, the people who I work with are super intelligent people. They're super knowledgeable people. And sometimes I would say, because I also came from the world of being very highly educated, and I basically fitted in a box because of everything that I was taught. And that fitting into the box limited me to think outside of the box and get creative into how I can create the world that I want doing. Because I will tell you, when I jumped from corporate into entrepreneurship, into the wellness space, some of the things I was told was, you're too old. What you're making, the change you're making doesn't make sense. You're never going to make it. You're never going to make money. And I was like, watch me.
That's a pretty depressing picture. Other than
but that was the reality of what I heard all around me. And I mean, I'll tell you, this is part of my book. My husband, when I first showed him my first pricing sheet, I started as a home-based Pilates studio. And he said, Maria, nobody is going to pay these prices to come to a basement to do Pilates with you. And I was like, I don't think that's right. And I'll tell you what the difference was. I had that very strong internal belief that when you do what you're supposed to do, that you love, the money will come. And not only it's not only the money, the impact will come, right? It's not like, well, I'll either make money or create impact. No, I would change my life. I would change the life of people around me who I'm supporting and working with. I would change the life of my family, my community. And I will impact the world in a much greater way, in a much greater capacity. So I see it as a win-win-win instead of, one wins, one loses. What do you have to say about that?
Well, when we talk about conscious capitalism, I will often say that conscious capitalism isn't an excuse for not having a good business model and a good business strategy. So what I do want to say is that it's both and, from two dimensions. One is, as you rightly pointed out, it has to be a win-win-win mentality, which really is about creativity and thinking outside the box and being open to experimenting in a lot of different ways. Having said that, it doesn't just happen by magic. There's also an element that says I have to look at what my business model is, and is my business model fit for purpose? And it's that combination, it's that dance between sort of the yin and the yang of purpose and business model that together helps create profit. Profit doesn't come from anywhere. Profit comes from the fact that you've treated your customers really well, that you've treated your employees really well, that you're working closely with your partners, that the community that you're a part of works really well. And if those things are working, then ultimately within a certain business model, you will make more money. Now, in contrast, if you're not doing those things, customers aren't happy, employees aren't happy, communities don't like you, and your partners don't want to work with you, and you don't have a well thought through business model, having the purpose alone is not going to save you. So it's the purpose and these other things that in combination lead to being profitable.
Yeah.
And in that sense, looking at it from a win-win-win perspective, looking at it from a stakeholder perspective, looking at it from a business model perspective, and thinking that through, then it's purpose and profit.
Yeah.
So I don't want to forget that other part, which is
No,
hey.
I think that's super key. And I'm so glad that you brought it, because you're right. Your strategy, your operations, your leadership, your culture, all of those have to align. And actually, I would love for you to speak to us a little bit about culture, because I think, for example, let's take something like wellness. For a lot of companies, wellness is a check mark, and it's what I say, an unintentional check mark. We offer something that's wellness, right? But if an employee goes to the gym, we make them feel bad that they've taken a lunch break to go to the gym. So that's a misalignment, right, of the culture. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of embracing that purposefulness and that mindset into leadership and the culture, rather than, saying we're going to be such a company, check mark, and we'll just put that in the papers, but we're actually not going to align our actions with it. Hey Rebels, I want to take a quick moment to share something super exciting with you. If you've been feeling stuck, disconnected, or just know there is more to life than what you're experiencing, I have something special for you. I have created a powerful 6-step video series called Unleash Your Potential, an introduction to the Angelova Method. As a valued Mind-Body podcast listener, the series is my gift to you. In this series, I will guide you through the core elements of the Angelova Method, a unique approach that integrates movement, mindset, and mastery to help you align your body, mind, and life. You will learn practical techniques to improve your alignment, boost your core strength, and connect deeply to your inner self. Whether you're looking to enhance your physical health, gain mental clarity, or simply live more fully, these videos are designed to get you started on the path to your most vibrant self. And the best part? It's completely free. So if you're ready to break through barriers and unleash your full potential, head over to mindbodyexpert.com and get started today. Let's take this journey together, because you, my rebel, deserve nothing less than the extraordinary.
Well, I think you need to step back and ask a fundamental question of the leadership team. When do we think people are at their best in our organization? When are they at their best in our organization? When are they bringing their best to work? Because ultimately, if you have the best people bringing their best to work, you have to really screw up as a leader not to win in the end, right? So the interesting question then is, as a leadership team, when are our people at our best? Now, at a very fundamental level, it's when they feel cared for and they feel their work is meaningful. So we talked a little bit about the meaningful aspect when we talked about purpose. When do they feel cared for? When the company shows that they care about me. In that sense, a wellness program is, if well implemented, a way of showing that you care. We want you to be at your best. We want you to be physically at your best, that kind of wellness, but we also want your financial well-being as well. We want you to be a full human being and bring your best self to work every day. How do we enable that? Well, if you're not healthy and if you're worried about money, you're not going to be bringing your best to work every day. So again, back to the fundamental question of, as leaders, what's our responsibility to make sure our people are at their best?
And I'm going to add to that, because you also brought up another very key word, and that's creativity, right? It's when you're creative and you have innovation and you have great energy going to the team. When you have a team that is stressed out, in sympathetic nervous system, freaking out about change or about what's happening in the economy or about whether they're going to get laid off, what does that do? That limits your creativity right there, because now your focus is survival. You cannot thrive when you're trying to survive. You can only take one action at a
Yeah.
time, that's very
But
limited. So
yeah.
going to what you said, how can
Yeah.
employees perform best is when they're stressed out, tired, overworked. It
Yeah.
doesn't work so well.
Yeah, no, the Maslow hierarchy of needs are true, right? The fundamental need is to feel safe. And if you don't feel safe, then you don't get to go to the next levels of self-actualization, etc. So I do think it's important that from a leadership point of view, that you look in your organization and you look for a couple things. Do we have a high degree of trust inside our organization? Do we feel people are engaged at work? And there's different ways of measuring it, but are they engaged? Because, more than 2/3 of most American workers are not engaged at work. And then finally, are we creating psychological safety? And if you underpin that with the financial well-being and people, then you are going to create circumstances where people will be agile, innovative, and your organization will be resilient. And, the contrast to environment where there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt is huge. In an atmosphere of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, people are not going to take risks, they're not going to take chances, they're not going to experiment. They're certainly not going to be at their most creative. So, I think it's when we state it and discuss it that way, it's almost common sense, right? Like, if my people aren't at their best and not bringing their best, then we're not going to prosper as much as we could as if they were.
So I'm going to ask you another question, and I'll tell you, this comes from a lot of my experience in corporate, where in various corporations, I experienced the phenomenon of basically employees are just an expense, right? They're not looked at as an asset, and we're going to outsource, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And I was also on the financial side, so I also got to see the long-term implications of those decisions, right? There is the short-term savings, and then there's the long-term implications of damaging relationships, impact, losing knowledge. Like you said, you destroy that environment of trust, of environment of where creativity thrives, because people are thinking, am I the next one who is going to get X'd out? Can you talk a little bit about that from your experience, again, working with many organizations? Why does it make sense? Which to me, it makes total sense. But why does it make sense to invest? Because again, let's take something like wellness. For many companies, they look at that as an expense item versus this is an investment in my workforce, which is to me one of the best assets that you've got.
Yeah. Like if you looked at your balance sheet and you sort of said, I have these assets, you'd want to maintain your assets, right? You'd invest in the maintenance work on the machine because so the machine doesn't break down. If the machine breaks down, you're not going to get your productivity. So it's fascinating that the way accounting has been set up, as you rightly pointed out, that our people, who people will say are our greatest assets, we treat them like costs. They will say that, but they treat them like costs on the balance sheet. Now, part of the problem here is people will often ask, well, how do you capture this stuff? Make the business case for it. And I'll tell you an anecdote about that because I thought it was really cool. It was the founder of Costco talking about how we dealt with analysts on Wall Street who would look at their numbers and say, your labor costs are 20% higher when we benchmark them against others. This is ridiculous. This should come to the bottom line. And why are you doing that? And he would just laugh. He would say, they clearly don't understand our business model. And then when pressed, he would say, well, let's use an example. At Christmas, most retailers make anywhere from 60 to 70% of their profit in the fourth quarter. Christmas is a big deal. A lot of people do shopping. And if you think of the retail industry where the turnover on average is close to 110%, versus a place like Costco that's got a 15 or 20% turnover in a bad year. And now you think about Christmas season. Story. Nobody's been through Christmas season before. There's no embedded experience. Oh my God, this is horrible. Look at all these people. We've got to replenish the stock. We've got all the, it's madness, help. Versus Costco, where 4 out of 5 people, in theory, are there sort of saying, we've been through this before. It's going to be tough. We'll get through it. Here's what we need to do to manage through. Now, that increase in in throughput, the efficiency of getting stock out on shelves and treating customers well and getting the lines to be as short as possible, that drives throughput. That drives, profit.
Profit, yeah.
And how do you describe that on a spreadsheet? Well, we're just more productive over the Christmas season. Cool. But where does productivity of that type show up in a profit and loss statement? It doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our challenge, is that some of the things that really matter, we're not measuring.
Measure them, yeah.
And we're not measuring them. But those are the things that really matter. That's what really drives your profit. And it's not the cost of what we're paying them per hour.
Yeah. This brings up an example. I was having a conversation with a physician about the decrease of physical therapy. Like post-surgery, something that I'm seeing more and more happen is people are not recommended to do physical therapy, which kind of used to be the standard. Before you do surgery, then you do physical therapy. Now what we are seeing is you do surgery and good luck, you're on your own. And we were having these conversations. And he made the comment, he goes, because of those MBAs. And I was like, be careful, you're talking to one. And if you think about the short-term implications of physical therapy, it's an expense, right? That perhaps the body will do fine. You have less pain because now your knee has been fixed, your hip has been fixed. Maybe you don't need the physical therapy. But what happens long-term if you don't return mobility to the body, right? And how do you measure the implications? Because you can't really directly tie to this. Later hip replacement after the knee replacement is now tied because the body never restored after the knee replacement.
No, I was just talking with somebody last night about that who had their knee replaced, hadn't fully recovered. They were trying to go skiing and, guess what? That same leg went out on them and they crashed and hurt their hip and had to have the hip replaced.
Yeah.
So I think it's a fundamentally, we don't need to get into this aspect of it, but we have a fundamentally broken system around healthcare in the US. It's fundamentally broken.
Yep.
Because it's dealing with episodic healthcare rather than with wellness. And I know I don't need to tell you about that, but
you tell it because the audience gets to hear from you.
Well, the fundamental problem is where, it's what I call, it's the fat smoker problem, right? Like, we know if we can get that person to stop smoking, go on a diet and exercise, we're going to decrease diabetes, we're going to increase heart disease. We know that the chances of lung cancer, all of those things go down if we have programs to help somebody like that get well. Now, no insurance company is incented to do that because they're just hoping they're passing the problem on to the next insurer. And nobody takes ownership of that person's well-being from the current financial model. And now
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think I've said it.
And you know what? I just wanted to continue of what you're saying, because you're right. Our healthcare system, our insurance system is not incentivized to take care of the patient. So my message to the people listening is, you people are in charge of your health and you can step it up, because I hear from many people, we're waiting for the system to change. It's going to be quite a while before we change this big system, right? That has a history. And it's billions of dollars. It's not going to change tomorrow with a magic wand. So what can we do meantime is take personal responsibility for our well-being and, start one person at a time, make it contagious. When we can get organizations, right, at a smaller scale to invest into the well-being of their employees, that's going to, long-term, that's going to save them so much money, because where the most of the expense for companies grow from a healthcare perspective, it's managing chronic disease.
Yeah. And as you know, some of the companies that are self-insured are starting to experiment with that more and more, because it is to their benefit to be able to cut down on the longer term expenses. But that's just beginning to really get traction. And again, it's a bit of a mindset shift, because I may be wrong, but I suspect that there is now data emerging that sort of says, if you're self-insured and you invest in wellness programs, you see some of the costs of your chronic treatments going down. And therefore, it makes sense to invest at the front end rather than have to pay at the back end. I've got to believe there are studies that are starting to show that.
Yeah.
But then it comes back to, I can show you the data. It goes back to what I said at the beginning. But if your mindset is such that you're not thinking that way, then it's really difficult to get people to shift. But I'm sure the data is emerging that makes that case.
Yeah, I do think there's more and more investment showing up, like how mindfulness, intentionality, supporting people decreases the percentages of chronic disease, how the severity of disease, mortality, and all of this. But I think you make a very important point that you will find the research study that you want to find to support the mindset that you have. So going back to the way we started the conversation, that open-mindedness is so key for shifting gears and making change.
Completely. Well said.
Yeah. Timothy, what if you could give us one piece of advice, what would that be?
One piece of advice on what? I can give lots of advice on a lot of things.
Anything that we just spoke about.
Listen, you want to be your best self in life more broadly. So the question is, how are you at your best? And that's a question when you talk about personal responsibility that I think is important. How and when are you at your best? What are the situations when you're having a really good, you feel you're in your flow? And what are those situations that are draining for you? Noting those over time and beginning to say to yourself, am I detecting patterns here? Hey, it's really interesting when I get a good night's sleep and I've exercised, I feel more productive at work. I don't have the 4 o'clock lag or the 2 o'clock lag because. And so there is, as you said, a certain self-responsibility. If I'm not trying to help myself be at my best, who is? And if being at my best isn't important to me, well, then we have a whole other discussion about why I want to be at my worst, or I'd just be good with mediocre. If I was just my old mediocre self, I'd be really satisfied with that. I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting question that's probably much more in your world than mine, but I do think it's fascinating to sort of when you frame it that way.
We laugh about it, but it is very true, because I'll tell you, Timothy, one of the differences that I help people is people really don't know what it means to feel good, because they're so used to the way that they feel that's it, right? So if you feel bad every day, that's what you expect you're going to feel, and you don't have anything to compare it against. And sometimes, like today, I saw a new client with hip pain, and she came all folded, and she left going like, oh my gosh, I can't believe my hip doesn't hurt. And she was so excited about it, but she hadn't experienced that in a long time. So for her, that was a new, a new status of like
a new status.
Yeah, that's now I can compare and see, is this how I'm feeling every day? What is my body telling me? That's how I want to feel.
So that's an incredibly important point. I was on the board of the largest yoga and health center outside of India, a place called Kripalu, which is up in the Berkshires. I was on the board there for 8 years. And one of the things that we did was we had a wellness program that we were having researched with Harvard Medical School. And what we learned was that it was really critical when you got people into these programs to have them there for 7 or 8 days. That 1 or 2 or 3 days wasn't enough. And the issue was that suddenly they were eating different healthy food. They were doing some morning meditation and some yoga, and they were getting exercise, and they felt like crap on day 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
But by day 5, 6, 7, 8, they started to feel better. And by day 7 and 8, they were getting to feel wellness in a new way. It was like you were resetting the thermostat in the room, like you were operating at this level. Now we've explained to you, this is what you could feel like all the time. And so, part of, I think, what the study was trying to show was that if you gave them the same amount of time in a Weight Watcher program or in some episodic, I go 2 or 3 times a week, that was totally different than resetting the feeling inside, because now they had a reference point. This is what goodness feels like, just like you did with your client. Oh, this is what a pain-free hip feels like. Gosh, I'd want that all the time. Oh, this is what it feels like to be more energized and healthy because I've done all these things for a week. It resets the norm for people.
I mean, I will tell you, I host wellness retreats, and when I do the international ones, I'm getting ready to leave for one. It's a week long. It's a full week. And people are like, Maria, it's really hard to take a week off. Why don't you make them shorter? And I'll tell you, if I do some shorter ones that are 3-4 days. Day one, they're still on the phone, right? They're still in reactive mode, responding to emails attached to the phone. Day two, half day, they still have that. By the second half, they're like, maybe the phone is a little bit away. By day three, they ditch the phone, right? So now we're starting to bring that like, oh, that's what it feels like to be disconnected from technology. Yeah. But it takes time to almost give yourself permission to go on the other side.
No, exactly. Exactly. And, if you don't commit to doing it, then you never experience it. You don't have the experience. You don't know what good is. And it becomes, a self-fulfilling prophecy.
All right. Let's wrap up by me asking you, what is your definition of rebellious, Timothy?
My definition of rebellious. I love that question. Well, it goes back to, you want to be a rebel with a cause, right? So I think that when you have a bigger purpose or a cause that's really important to you, it ties back to our earlier discussion about being creative and thinking out of the box and trying new things. So as opposed to a rebel without a cause, I would view a positive rebellion as being a rebel with a cause who really wants to make a difference in the world or wants to make something or wants to achieve something. And then it becomes, am I willing to think out of the box and experiment in trying to get there? And, trying to throw off that's the way it's always been done. But finding out for themselves, the natural rebels are always trying to find their own way. By trying to find their own way in service of a greater cause, then the universe sort of lines up and gives you a helping hand.
Totally agree with you. Totally can stand by that definition. Timothy, to wrap up, tell people, how can they find you? How can they connect with you? How can they find more about the organization? We're going to share the social media links. How can people connect with you?
Well, they can go to Conscious Capitalism, all one word, .org, and that's our website, and they can find information there. And then 2 ways to connect with me is they can reach me at Henry, Henry, pretty simple, at consciouscapitalism.org. And that's how they can reach me by email. And of course, they can try to link to me on LinkedIn if that's a way they want to go. And of course, they can follow the podcast that we have, The Conscious Capitalists, with my buddy Raj Sisodia and I, which comes out every 2 weeks. You can find that on your favorite channel for listening to podcasts. The Conscious Capitalists with Timothy Henry and Raj Sisodia.
Awesome. We'll share all of these links and make sure that people have an easy way to get to any of them. With that said, I am so grateful for your time. I do know you're a busy man, and I'm very greatly appreciative that you made the time to be here with us and share your message. I do think it's instrumentally important to share that message, especially in the healthcare and wellness space, amongst others. And I just send you tons of gratitude. Rebels, you know the spiel. If you have any questions, ask them, share, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And most of all, do not forget to stay rebellious. I will see you next time. Thank you, Timothy.
Thank you. Be well.
Thank you for joining us on the Mind Body Podcast, where we explore the power of living authentically and rebelliously. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow rebellious soul who would love to hear what we share as much as you do. Stay strong, stay calm, and most importantly, stay rebellious. Until next time, rebellious souls, keep living fully. Your journey is just beginning.